Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Dr. Wiggo, and today we're going to be talking about Philip Pullman's Book of Dust. Yes, it's a books video. By necessity, we'll also talk about his Dark Materials, which is Philip Pullman's more famous earlier work, which the Book of Dust is the equal to, E-Q-U-E-L. I'll explain later. So how this is going to work, first I'll talk about the author a little bit, like I usually do, and then you can skip that chapter if you don't care. And then I'll talk about my path that led me to read these books and the original books, and you'll see when we get there. Then I'll quickly run through Sir Philip's bibliography, because he is a knight. He's written a lot of books, mainly children's books. Technically, his Dark Materials are children's books. And then we'll talk about the Book of Dust, which you can't really do without including his Dark Materials, because that's kind of the prequel, sequel, equal. Again, we'll talk about that when we get down there. Sir Philip Pullman grew up in England and Wales and attended Exeter College in Oxford, got a third-class BA in 1968, which he said he was very proud of until he found out they had stopped issuing fourth-class BAs, which he probably would have gotten. After college, he got married and started teaching middle school in Somertown, North Oxford, where he also wrote school plays. But he quit teaching after his fourth book was published in 1985, and we'll get to those in the next chapter. And then, starting in 1988, he taught part-time at Westminster College, Oxford. So he went to Oxford, taught at Oxford, which might explain why his Dark Materials and the Book of Dust takes place around Oxford. After the first book of his Dark Materials came out, Northern Lights, or The Golden Compass in the United States for some reason, he stopped teaching at Oxford and started writing full-time. In 2004, he was made a commander of the British Empire. And then in 2019, he was actually knighted and became a knight bachelor. I don't really know what that means, but apparently it's somewhat different from other knighthoods. Yeah. How did I come across Sir Philip Pullman? Well, like a lot of Americans, my introduction was the movie The Golden Compass in 2007. Not a terribly good movie, but it had Daniel Craig as Lord Asriel, Nicole Kidman as Mrs. Coulter, Sam Elliott as Lee Scoresby, Eva Green, Jarek Jacobi, Ian McKellen, Freddie Highmore, Ian McShane, Kathy Bates. It was a star-studded cast, but it was budgeted at $180 million, and it opened in the U.S. to $26 million, and only ended up making $70 million total in the U.S. Its worldwide gross was $372 million, which maybe made it profitable. Rotten Tomatoes didn't like it, 42%. Metacritic gave it a 51 out of 100. Its cinema score was a B. It did win an Oscar and a BAFTA for visual effects. But all in all, it was kind of a disappointing movie, and fans of the book didn't really like it that much. They had to cut stuff out to get it down to the 2-hour running time. But the story was intriguing, so I did what most people would do, is I went and read the book. And the book was much better. And then I read the follow-on books, The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. And they were pretty good. I was relatively impressed. But wait, in 2019, HBO started a miniseries based on his Dark Materials, where each season covered one of the books. And Daphne Keane was Lyra, and you remember her from Logan. James McAvoy as Lord Asriel, Ruth Wilson as Mrs. Coulter, Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby, and also featured voices and appearances by Terrence Stamp, David Suchet, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Bella Ramsey from Game of Thrones. This series was so much better than the original movie. For one thing, each book got a whole season, so it got multiple episodes, 8 to 10, and I loved it. I loved the books, I loved the series. The movie was okay. And if you just want to get into the story, I would recommend going to HBO Max and watching the series, because it covers almost all the material in the books. They don't leave out a lot. They do move some things around. It's an adaptation, so it's not perfect. But it's a really good introduction, and if you don't like to read, well, watch TV. And that'll set you up for these books. Wait, first I promised a bibliography. After he got out of college and was teaching middle school, he started writing children's books, probably because he taught middle school. The Haunted Storm was his first book in 1972, then Galatea in 1978, Count Karlstein in 1982, another children's book, The Ruby in the Smoke in 1985, which was part of what he called the Sally Lockhart Quartet. Then in 86, he quit teaching school and just started writing full-time, and he wrote The Shadow in the North in 1986, another Sally Lockhart Quartet novel. How to Be Cool in 1987. Then he started teaching part-time at Oxford, like I mentioned before, and he published Spring-Heeled Jack in 1989. It was a graphic novel with David Moyston. The Tiger in the Wall, 1990, another Sally Lockhart quartet, and The Broken Bridge in 1990. He published The White Mercedes in 1992, which for some reason was reissued as The Butterfly Tattoo in 1998. And then The Tin Princess in 1994, which was the last of the Sally Lockhart quartets. Then in 1995, we got the first book of his Dark Materials, Northern Lights, in the UK. For some reason in the US, it was retitled The Golden Compass and came out the next year in 1996. Then he published The Firework Maker's Daughter in 1995, Clockwork or All Wound Up in 1996. And in 1996, he stopped teaching at Oxford and went back to writing full-time. And then we get the second book of his Dark Materials, The Subtle Knife, in 1997. Another children's book, I Was a Rat, or The Scarlet Slippers, in 1999. Then the last book of his Dark Materials, The Amber Spyglass, in the year 2000. Then another kid's book, The Scarecrow and His Servant, 2004. Then in 2008, he started working on the Book of Dust. But the first book, La Belle Sauvage, was published in 2017. The second book, The Secret Commonwealth, was published in 2019. And the final book was just published this past year, towards the end of 2025, which is why I'm doing a video about it, because now it's complete, and you know my rule. I only do complete series on this channel. So let's get into the books we're here to talk about, which are his Dark Materials and the Book of Dust. Or as Pullman has sometimes referred to it, his darker materials, because it's more adult. His Dark Materials was more a young adult book. This one's more an adult book on multiple levels, which we'll talk about. All 6 of these books deal with like the quantum theory of many worlds theory, and things like dark matter, which he talks about as dust, and consciousness. And a lot of people thought his Dark Materials was very anti-religious. He is an avowed Church of England atheist, but he says he's technically an agnostic. He doesn't know. There may be a God. But his Dark Materials shows he's definitely against organized religion, and especially dogma. This is the truth, you must believe it or else. In his Dark Materials, the church is trying to stop science, and he's a fan of science. His Dark Materials is a wonderful book. Well, 3 books. And you follow Lyra through this journey of discovery and self-discovery and these fantastical situations. And the thing that attracted me to the Golden Compass in the first place, the talking polar bear. One of the affectations of Lyra's Oxford and Lyra's world that these books are set in is that people have demons. They're part of your soul or your consciousness or your conscience that lives outside your body in an animal form. So everybody has these animals that go around with them. And when you're a child, they can change into different animals, but when you become an adult, they settle into one form. And so some people have owls, some people have snakes, all kinds of animals. And so everyone always has an animal with them. That's their demon. And they talk to each other. The demons can talk. And again, it's like having a conversation with yourself. It's like having a conversation with your conscience or your consciousness. Sometimes the demons will spot things that you didn't spot. And they'll point it out to you. And you say, oh, I didn't see that. Well, obviously you did. Or did you? I don't know. But the whole thing with demons being able to change when you're a child, the whole thing of his Dark Materials is basically about the pliability of youth, and it's about hope and imagination and the spiritual. Not religious, but spiritual. Well, the whole concept of having your part of your consciousness or your soul be outside your body and being able to talk to it, that's very spiritual. The Book of Dust starts out the same way in this first book, La Belle Sauvage, because this is a prequel to his Dark Materials. In this book, Lyra is a baby, and the story is about these other children, about the same age Lyra was in The Golden Compass, who have to save her and protect her and go through this amazing journey. It's really good. There's the same supernatural aspects and everything that were in his Dark Materials. I really like it. And it explains how Lyra ended up at Oxford and the college and all. Lots of things are explained in this book. But it doesn't stop there. But then we move on to the second book, The Secret Commonwealth, where Lyra is a young woman and her demon Pan has settled in the form of a marten. They name a whole lot of animals that I don't really know what they are. Maybe it's like a little fox. I don't know. But all of a sudden, it's not full of hope like the original books were. Now it's sort of more about the calcification of the spirit, the closing in of your consciousness and ignoring the supernatural and the wild things that Lyra experienced in person in the first set of books. But now in this book, she thinks, well, maybe there's a rational explanation. As soon as you hear people start talking about rational explanations for things, you know the fun is gone. So this book is much more depressing. Again, his darker materials, as Sir Philip has called it. But then it gets even worse when you get into the Rosefield, the final book of the second trilogy. Because now it's just horrible. Commercialization and people giving up everything for money, including selling their demons and things like that. It's just, well, it's kind of a metaphor for our society where we push away anything hopeful and imaginative and we say, no, you got to work, you got to get money. Don't get a degree in English, you need to get a degree in business so you can make money. Everything becomes about making money, and that happens a lot in this book too. So it's a fundamentally different set of books. Again, his dark materials is childhood and youth and hope and imagination, and the Book of Dust is the death of hope and the death of imagination and moving into adulthood. Reading these books made me want to be a kid again. I wanted to go back to his dark materials, that world. I didn't want to live in this world. Not to say it's not a good book, but if you're looking for the hopeful outlook of the original His Dark Materials, if you've read them, you know, well, it's not really hopeful, but it kind of is. Anyway, this set of books is much more depressing, but realistic. But of course, when I read fantasy, I don't want realism. I want fantasy. I want the fantastical. I want His Dark Materials. I don't want the Book of Dust. This one, the first one, yes. Maybe even this one. I don't like where it ends up. So that's basically my review. His Dark Materials, I highly recommend. I would recommend you watch the HBO series, and I'd recommend you read the books. And it really doesn't matter which order you do them in. I prefer the series first, and then the books, because then I can have pictures in my head of what they look like. Because if you read the books first, then the pictures in your head are the ones you made up, and then when you watch the adaptation, you go, well, that's not what she looks like to me. But if you watch the show first, it's up to you. But I recommend both. I recommend the HBO series, His Dark Materials. I recommend the 3 books of His Dark Materials. Book of Dust, I still recommend it, but be prepared to be a little disappointed, because if you're looking for more of His Dark Materials, that's not really what you get. You get some of the same characters, but they've changed and they're different. And of course, some of the characters aren't there anymore. So you have new characters, some of which aren't as interesting or are. You'll have to read it yourself and be your own judge. But again, read His Dark Materials, watch the HBO series, and then think about reading the Book of Dust. If you really are into the story and want to know where things go, well, then you read the Book of Dust, and you may not like where things went, but you'll know where they went in the author's mind. That's not much of a recommendation, is it? I liked it, but it made me sad. And I don't like being sad. I like being happy. I like rosy outlooks. That's all I've got to say about this. That's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Bye-bye. I'm going to go back to tech videos because they're not as depressing. Thanks for staying to the end. Bye-bye.